now people allow credit card. There's like a 70 or 80 cents a gallon. So you have 20 gallons, that's $14 to $16 savings. So, and I have no stock in Narco. I would like to introduce my golfing buddy, Mark Barnes. Mark has recently completed the publishing of his autobiography. It is a story of a man living in Baltimore, trapped in the world of substance abuse, that through the help of his friends, family, and his faith, turned his life around and found a new life in sunny California. Please welcome Mark Barnes. And he'll also be able to ask questions after or sign books if you'd like. So please welcome Mark.
Thank you very much for having me. Do I owe any money to the fine jar for the false start?
Yeah.
Okay. But again, thanks for having me, and just like to tell my story. It's good that you start with prayer, so I know it's some spirituality going on in here too, because my story is one of faith and my spiritual beginnings. As Phil told you, I'm actually from Baltimore City. I've been here in California for 18 years, and to tell you a little bit about my beginnings, I'm actually from a small town in Maryland called Aberdeen, which is north of Baltimore, south of Philly. My claim to fame is I played high school baseball with Cal Ripken Jr. So he went on to be a professional in the Ironman, and I'm here with you. But
can you get Cal for our next speaking?
You know what? I'll look into that. It depends on how this book does. But my mother was I come from a single parent home. My mother raised 4 boys by herself. She was college educated, so she did instill some values in us as far as trying to do the right thing. But I didn't come up with a dad in my life. So I guess you can contribute that to some of my wrong decisions as I grew older. But moving forward, I was an athlete in high school. I didn't quite get the grades to go to university. I went to a community college, didn't do well in community college because that's when I started to experiment with some drugs, like drinking beer, because I didn't drink through high school. I didn't start doing drugs until I got to college because all my college roommates were alcoholics and drug addicts, but they actually just smoked weed. So that was my beginning of drugs. That's, I first experimented with marijuana and really wasn't a heavy drug user because I was an athlete. But after my athletic career didn't go too well, because like every other young person, I wanted to move on to play pro baseball, but that dream didn't happen. So I had to face the reality and get a job. So since I didn't finish college because I didn't get good grades, so I dropped out of college, moved back home, and was able to go to a trade school and get a technical, I got a technical certificate in electronics, which enabled me to get land a job with the Xerox Corporation. Now I worked for Xerox for 18 years. But through the beginnings of my time at Xerox is when I started to dabble with drugs, smoking marijuana and drinking. And as far as smoking was concerned, I used to sell it and everything was fine. But then through this process, I got introduced to someone who told me about selling cocaine. Hey, you can make a whole lot of money if you start selling cocaine. I didn't take him up on the offer at first, but later on I did. And that was the beginning of my woes. So I sold drugs for a little while, sold cocaine for a little while, and I don't know if you heard the story, but they say don't start using your own supply, which is what I did. And after I started using, I was a functional addict with Xerox for 18 years. Wow. And I worked and I got high and I tried to hold this all together. I eventually had a baby, and like anything, when you abuse a substance, it eventually takes control, and that's what happened. So it came to a point where my productivity on the job got worse and worse till it was inevitable that I was almost about to lose my job. So those days are when, if you confess to your boss that you had a problem, they had to help you. They had to put you in some type of recovery or some type of help to get help. And I never forget the day I walked into my boss's office and I said, I got a problem because my numbers were tanking. I was doing terrible on the job. Productivity was horrible, but I was maintaining. And I just told her, I said, I have a problem. It was a female, and I said, she's like, what? She had no clue what I was about to tell her. And I told her that, I have a drug problem. And her face just was like, she didn't expect that, caught her off guard. But she said, hold on. She left the room. She came back with her boss, HR, and everybody sitting in the room, and we had that discussion that we're going to get you some help. So, long story short, I went through the it's funny because I told him, I said, if I get into some type of recovery, it has to be inpatient. I can't be released because I knew my cocaine addiction was such that if I get to go, there's a possibility that I may relapse. And they said, well, the only thing that we offer on your coverage is outpatient. So I went through the outpatient recovery, and it didn't work because I was in a recovery place in a treatment center that all the people in the treatment center, when we left our training through the course of the day, they went to their dorms. I got in my car and went home. So after a while of that, I just started using. I'd leave the treatment center. Someone told me, hey, you drink this tea, it'll keep you clean and you'll be able to, have clean urine, because they would test you regularly, of course. But, of course, after doing that, thinking I had a way to circumvent the urine test, I still got high. And it was a 30-day program. After my 30 days, they said, okay, go back to work Monday morning. I went back to work Monday morning. My boss, her boss, the HR people were all in the same room to have that same meeting. And they asked me, so how did it go? And I told them it went just fine. And they said, well, according to the results from all your urine cell analysis, you came up positive for cocaine. So the first thing out of my mouth was, I told you I needed to be in an inpatient. Your fault. But and that's what addicts do. It's everybody else's fault but ours. So they offered me either we'll let you keep your job, but we're going to make it very difficult for you to keep the job. We're going to raise all your targets, and it's going to be tough. Or we'll give you a severance package, and you resign, sign this paper and resign. So that's what I did. And, lost the job. So once again, here we are. Drug addiction is going out of control. And just moving forward, I lost my home. I lost the job, of course, like I said, because I was getting high for the whole year because they gave me a severance package that paid me full pay for a year. And that was a terrible thing for a cocaine addict, because now I don't have to go to work. I still get a paycheck. And that's what I did. I just abused it and just sunk deeper and deeper into my addiction. And, eventually the checks stopped coming. And now my life is just sinking into turmoil. Things are getting worse and worse and worse. But so moving forward, I start going to the church because my brother also was a recovered addict, but he had given his life to the Lord and stopped. So I said, well, if he did it, I'll do it. So I went to the church and I went to the front and they laid hands on me and I said, oh, I'm healed. A week later, I relapsed. So this process kept going on, and I would run to the church, and when I was missing, they knew why, and I would come back. I'd go to the altar. I'd say, Lord, forgive me again, and over again. It was a process that I just couldn't get it. I couldn't get it. So I got the opportunity from a friend, because now there's a whole lot to my story that I don't really have time to share, but I'm a drummer by trade. I played in many, many bands back in the East, when I was home in Maryland. So I was in an R&B band, because what I was trying to do is I figured if I would replace, we talked about it last night in our church meeting, in our Bible study, that we replace things with other things. When we're trying to fix something, we'll replace it with something. So what I did was I tried to replace this addiction that I had with playing in the band. Well, everybody in the band drank and smoked weed. So soon as we would finish a gig and we were all partied out, I would gravitate to my drug of choice, which was cocaine. So again, it's not working. So, and every time I relapse or it gets worse and worse, it's like God, the spankings get worse. So now I'm in another band. And this band, this band is a bunch of guys that college educated. They're driven musicians. They're trying to make it. We're playing original songs. We got music being played on the local radio stations. We're in New York every weekend. And it's like, okay, this is it. This is it. And I kept on falling. And I did the ultimate thing. I missed the gig. I didn't show up. And that's back when they had beepers. And I'm getting beat. They're like, and I called to get the message, and they're like, Mark, where are you, man? We need you. We're about to start. We already set your drums up. Just get here. And I just can't stop. I can't put that pipe down long enough to go to this gig. So that was the last straw for them. They said they came to where they knew where I was, and we had a gig in New York the next day. So we had a gig on Friday and a gig on Saturday, but Saturday's gig was in New York. And we were like taking 2 buses to New York to play this huge gig, because we were pretty big in Baltimore at the time. They showed up at my girlfriend's door, and that's where I was. I was stuck at her house. And they said, Mark, they knocked on the door. I knew it was them, so I answered the door. They said, we ain't letting you out of our sight. Wherever you go today, we're going with you. So, and I totally understood. Because I messed up, and I knew that probably was going to be my last gig, but it was something that we had planned, so they couldn't just fire me. We had to go through with it. So we did. It was a great gig, had a wonderful time. And then the next day they called me and said, Mark, come get your drums, you're done. So here I am. Drugs is just taking everything from me. I'm trying to get it, but I can't quite get it. I'm seeking spiritual help, but I'm not quite grasping it. And I'm not blaming God, I'm blaming me. My eyes weren't open yet. So one of the guys in my previous band knew about my problem because he went to the same church I went to. So he said, Mark, I got a friend that has a treatment center in California. All you have to do is get there and they'll have a bed for you, they'll feed you, and you just have to go through this program. So I said, California, all I knew about California was Crips and Bloods and gang banging and shooting. Because remember, I'm from a small country town. We don't do that there. But the thought process was, you hear the rap music and that's all they talk about. So somebody not from that, hearing that because that's all we used to, why are they killing each other in California? Because of red and blue. That's how we perceived what was going on here. So I was really hesitant about taking this option, but I really didn't have a lot of choices. So I thought about it, and of course I went back to God. And I said, God, if I'm supposed to go to California, I need to hear it from the man of God. I need him to tell me, because I was taught that the preacher you sit under is the guy who speaks to you. You ever been in church and you hear a sermon and you're sitting there going, how did he know? How did he, because God will use men of God to speak to you, because that's what the church is all about. So I sat down, it was a Wednesday night Bible study, and he said, tonight's sermon is going to be preached from the book of Genesis. And he said, I'm going to speak about how God told Abraham to go. Leave land, family, friends, everything you know, and go to a land that I'll show you. And I'll kid you not, I put my head down. I just went, oh gosh. Because I knew that was my word. I knew that was for me. So moving ahead, I finally, went to my family, said, yeah, I'm gonna go. Because they were like, get out of here. Because I was breaking havoc through my family. I was making a mess. My mom was, she's not elderly at the time, but she was older. And my brothers were like sick and tired of the mess I was making. So they were like, go. So got on a plane, landed in California. I spoke to the recovery, said I'm coming. And they picked me up at the airport. And when I got off the plane, I kid you not, God spoke to my heart and he said, crack and back. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew it was a book that I was to write. And I don't write books, I'm not an author. I just knew it. You just know when you know what? I knew it. 18 years I sat on that. I even went by people, I test drove it on folks. I said, if you saw a book in Walmart on the shelf that said cracking back, would you look at it? Oh man, that's a good title. I definitely checked that out. So, and I took it around and I told people over 18 years, I would tell people that title. And everybody I told said, yeah, that's a pretty cool title. So, as I got into programs, I got my life back in order. I got, clean and sober. I got a job. By then I had 2 daughters. One of them one didn't want to come because she was pretty much older and stable in Maryland, but the other was still in school, so she got on a plane because my mother had taken over my children for me. That's the one thing I had family that supported me while I was going through my issues. Because my brothers were done with me, but my mother, mother's love, that's always going to be. So she put my youngest on a plane and sent her out here to me because I said, Mom, I'm ready. Send me my daughter. She did. And, I had a little apartment and, I was able to start raising my daughter. So, I remember I worked for Xerox. So now I was able to land a job with Canon in California. Now I had a few jobs, but I'm progressing and each job is a little bit better than the previous. So I finally got a job with Canon because, I had that background of being a technician. So they hired me and things are fine. Working for Canon, making decent money, playing a lot of golf. Somewhere along the line I met Phil and Steve and things are pretty good. So the pandemic hit and everything got shut down. Now remember, I was told this title 18 years ago. So this is probably 20. Well, the pandemic was in 2020. That's when it hit March. I'll never forget. So when the company shut down and sent us all home, they gave us a little severance package. And now I'm not working, I'm collecting unemployment and the severance. So everything is pretty cool. God said, just like he told me the title, he said, you now have time, start writing. I'm like, oh gosh. Because now I'm faced with, you gotta complete this task that I've given you 18 years ago. So I'm like, oh my goodness. So I don't know how to begin. And one of the pastors at my church, I'm a member of Cottonwood in Catella in Los Alamitos under Bayless Conley. One preacher preached a sermon and he had mustard seeds. And he handed, I don't know if you've ever seen Cottonwood. It's a 3,000 seat auditorium. It's huge. He passed out mustard seeds to the whole congregation. And he said, the sermon was like, if you have something that's too big, that seems too, a big mountain, you have to have mustard seed faith, and you just eat the elephant a bite at a time. So if the task seems too big, just begin, just start. So I was like, once again, God spoke to me. So I started with a pencil and a pad, and I started writing. I kid you not, I wrote this whole thing with a lead pencil. And it just kept on going. I kept till finally December. I started in March, December it was complete. So I said, Google, how many, because now I have to take this thing from a pencil written manuscript to a Word document, because I can't do anything with it until I send it out, whatever, till it's on Word. So I texted it to Word. That in itself is a crazy process because I don't type. So after I got all that done, Word counts the words. So when I was all done, make sure I don't run over time. Okay, when I finally got the whole thing done, I said, I counted it. I said, I went to Google and I said, Google, how many words constitutes a book, an autobiography, a novel? And Google said, The Wizard of Oz was 40,000 words. So I said, okay. So when I finished putting it in a Word document, it was 101,000 words, separated into 26 chapters. So I'm like, okay, cool. It's not a pamphlet. It's an actual book. So now I'm shopping it around. I got the Word document. I'm shopping the manuscript around the different publishing companies. Everywhere I sent it to maybe 10 different ones, they all fell in love and said, we'd love to publish it. So it was actually one of them came back and said, well, we like it, but can you change some of the sexual stuff in it? Because it's not overly sexual. I just talk about some of my escapades in my travels in Baltimore City, dealing with prostitutes and those things, but nothing crazy. So I said, well, okay. She said, can you tone that down? I said, I'll see. Now, mind you, 9 others are ready to go, as is. So after I thought about it a second, I said, you know what? I think it's cool. I think I'm gonna just stick with it. So she called me back. She said, were you able to tone it down? I said, after second thought, I think I don't want to, because it's my story, I want to keep it as is. Because it's not overly sexual, it just talks about certain things that happen. So she said, okay, well, let me go back to my review department and see if they don't mind, if they'll let it stay as is, and I'll get back to you. I said, okay. But I had already made up my mind that I wasn't going to use them anyway. So she called me the next day. They don't mind. They want to go as is. So I said, oh, you know what? Too late. I've already decided on my publishing company. And she said, okay, if you're sure, if you don't change your mind, we still want to go ahead and publish it for you. So long story short, I went to Christian Faith Publishing, sent the book to them. They did the whole publishing thing, and here it is.
Hey.
Here it is. So, and trust me, this process has been a wild ride because I know God's hand is on it. And I've already done a radio interview at one of the local stations. I've been approached by 700 Club. They're reviewing it now, so there's a possibility you might see my smiling face on the 700 Club. And I just, as of yesterday, was contacted by a ABC affiliate, Channel 7 on the East Coast, and they're in the processes of pitching it. So, and I say that just to say, it's not me. Because I've always said from the beginning, I don't write books. All I did for 18 years was smoke cocaine. And once God got my attention, I was able to do something for the kingdom. Because this book, it's an opportunity for you to sit in your lounge chair, and if you've never dealt with drugs, or maybe you have a relative or somebody who's dealing with drugs, you are able to sit back and just through these pages and just go through the streets of Baltimore, see what happens in that world, and just kind of through the eyes of me, experience that whole culture. So, and it's funny because this thing has been going crazy right now. Because when they first did the press release and all that good stuff, you could, if you wanted to find it, you had to go on Amazon because it's available on Amazon, iTunes, and Barnes and Noble. But you had to dig and you had to put in all kind of key search words and finally, boom, there it will pop up. Now, if you type crack and it's there.
Yeah.
It just shows right up, meaning, you know, how the algorithm has changed from so much response, from so many people searching it, that it's now, it just shows right up. And I know that's like, you know, I give all the glory to God because he's just opening doors and just using this thing mightily to help people. So, you know, I'm just thankful. I'm so excited about the future. You know, it's been a really, really fun ride, and there's so much more to come. My buddy Kiwanis, he also has a bestseller on Amazon, and he's kind of taking me under his wing and getting me ready for these next steps. Because I got a feeling it's going to be bigger than my mind can imagine right at this point. Because he was the one that told me when he read the back, he said, "Dude, you got a bestseller." You know, the synopsis on the back says, "You got a bestseller, man." And he's got a bestseller, so he knows what one he's got experience. So anyway,
You're rubbing elbows with the one.
Oh man, now. And then and I want to tell you this, and I'm done. Because I got a funny feeling the future's going to be big. This is my first speaking engagement.
Oh.
Now,
Nice. Thank
and I'm going to remember that.
you. By joining Kiwanis?
My, you know, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, so I speak all the time. I mean, you know, he better pull the reins on me because I can take 45 minutes and go. But, you know, I'm going to always remember this. So if you see me on TV one day, I'll mention the fact that it all started here. Thank you very much. And back.
The only crack that I know is I crack my back every time I play golf. So like I did the last author I had in, I bought it, 3 books.
Yes, you did. Thank you. I appreciate it.
For my good buddy golfer here. And I also wear my golfing shirt. So I do a quiz. I bought 3 books. And so I'm going to ask you a few questions. And whoever answers them correctly, not very hard. And the people that come from Baltimore can't answer.
Wow.
So the first question is, what is the name of the harbor where the aquarium is in Baltimore?
Called Inner Harbor.
Boom.
Inner Harbor. Good job.
Shout it out.
You gotta say it fast. Thank you. And Mark will be glad to sign that.
I'm not going to finish this story because the only time I was in Baltimore, hardcore, remember Monday Night Football? He's coming out of the elevator. A friend of mine, Carl Pierce, is the CEO, president of Kansas City Chiefs, work together, and we sit there. He says, "Come on upstairs, we'll have a drink." And so we spent like 3 hours with hardcore sales.
Wow.
What's the name of the bay off Don't be fast, you know. That was pretty good, wasn't it? Great. Congratulations. And the third, I had the list of questions and
What's
I
the
left the
bird?
questions home. So what's the name of the aquarium in Baltimore?
Baltimore Aquarium. I don't know.
No?
Arthur?
It's the National Aquarium.
There you go! How did you know that?
I'm from 95, man, from Petersburg, Richmond,
95, there
Virginia.
you go.
I appreciate it. I was just waiting in case of
There
things.
you go. Congratulations. So I do want to ask Beth one question.
I got one for
I
him.
do-
What's the poet that's known in Baltimore?
Edgar Allan Poe.
You are the man.
we give- So Beth, I have to ask you a question. Beth, I have to ask you a question.
Stealing.
You have this new member that came in. How did you get the new member?
Thank you.
Mike?
Thank you.
Yeah, you just
Yes.
asked. So I gave everybody little business cards to give out as a free luncheon. So just ask, so we can increase our.
questions?
So, sorry, I didn't mean to be interrupted. Go ahead. I didn't hear you.
Oh, you're terrible.
So I'm done. Thank you.
Wow. That was really special, Mark. Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
And a lot of awareness that people don't know what's going on in other people's lives
Mm-hmm.
when you're getting away with it for so long. And so I'm really grateful that you got your way out of it. Still alive and surrounded yourself by lots of love and good community. And I think that's what we do every time we come to Kiwanis, is we're so restored by the people. I'm gonna get emotional because I think it's just really powerful to surround yourself by good people that love you and remind you to be your best self. And you know, my theme, I keep saying it, is legacy inspired, and I am very proud to be your president under you know, the past presidents in this room, of course, including my father, and all of the inspiration that I get of the volunteers in this room. It really empowers me. And I haven't quite told my husband, but I'm just gonna put it out there so that it's a done deal. I've decided I really need to be the president again next year so I can finish the job. I'm just putting it out there to own the decision, and I really need you all to help me own it because I want to preserve and grow the club. And so a member at a time, you know, future members, us getting national recognition for being the first place. Mark did his speech on his book. And so thank you to everybody for coming today and for all you do to help the community of Long Beach.